Hey, it's your friendly neighborhood potato witch. Welcome to the show. First off, a very special thank you to Cass McPhee on Patreon, who requested this RPG recap for Chrono Cross. This one's for you. So, Chrono Cross is a PlayStation game that was released in Japan in 1999 and in North America in 2000, and also had its re-release on the PlayStation Network in 2011. It's related to the famous SNES RPG Chrono Trigger, though the exact relation seems kind of up in the air. Depending on who you ask, it's a direct sequel, or maybe a spiritual successor, or also maybe kinda takes place in a parallel dimension to Chrono Trigger, which kinda makes sense in the context of the game, but is also kind of a mind screw, so, make of all that what you will. Before I get down to the story, I want to mention a couple of things about Chrono Cross. Compared to many other RPGs, Chrono Cross gives you multiple opportunities to get characters on your team, not just one opportunity. So if you don't get someone now, chances are you can get them later. Sometimes having a certain character around will make another character join you or not join you. Sometimes having characters at the right time and place will give you stuff that goes beyond some dialogue options in cutscenes. Heck, there are some characters you can only get on your side at the expense of others in a playthrough. So keep that in mind when the story's being told, because when it comes to characters, one game may not exactly play out like another. The order I get some characters in might be different than the order you get some characters in. Second thing is that some mandatory story elements will tease optional story elements that you may not even realize are optional, because one thing leads so easily into another. For the sake of this recap, I've tried to stick only to the mandatory stuff, leaving the optional things, all the character side quests and so on, out of the picture. But there are so many, and they really add a lot of depth to the story if you pursue them when you play the game for yourself. But I know what you're really here for. You're here for the story. So let's begin exploring the story that lives within the PS1 classic, Chrono Cross. It begins in a tower, a trio of people by the names of Orcha, Kid, and our protagonist Serge, making their way forward to defeat someone they call Lynx. They run through a maze of platforms and fight guard robots to reach a glowing platform that teleports them above the tower in front of a massive door. As he stands there, Serge gets visions of Kid lying dead or wounded at his feet, himself holding a bloody knife in his hand. And then... seriously? It was all a dream? Starting early with the cliches, I see. Cool. We got plenty of the game left to figure this out, so it's fine. Serge's mother reminds him that he had plans to meet with his friend Lena, and girls can be scary if you break promises to them, so maybe he should skedaddle and find her. Serge skedaddles and finds Lena by the pier. Lena reminds him that he promised to get her some Komodo dragon scales for her necklace. A trip to Lizard Rock and 3 Komodo dragon scales later, and Serge meets up with Lena again on Opasa Beach. Serge hands over the scales he collected, which makes Lena happy. The two chill on the beach for a while and watch the ocean, reminiscing and philosophizing, talking about promises and memories and all the possibilities of the future. Serge seems to hear something, a voice coming from somewhere he can't identify, giving him pause. The horizon shimmers and he flashes into a vision of chaos and cat eyes, and when he comes back to reality, a huge wave is approaching and energy swirls up around him, and then suddenly it stops, and he collapses forward onto the sands. A voice calls him back to reality, waking him up. It's an old man, wondering why he's just lying there on the beach. Lena is nowhere in sight, but the man tells Serge she's probably back at the village, so it's fine. Serge heads back to the village, but not before stopping on the world map to spend like half an hour listening to the new overworld theme, because it's chill and beautiful and... oh wait, it's just me who does that? Oh, right. Well then. Moving on! Back in the village, everything seems the same, but wait, not quite. Serge is greeted as a stranger, popular trends have changed during the, hour or two that Serge was lying on the beach, and Lena doesn't recognize Serge in the slightest. She comments that he looks a bit like the boy who used to live next door to her, but that boy drowned 10 years ago, his mother passing away soon after. Funny enough, that boy was also named Serge. How odd. Lena advises Serge to go visit the boy's grave up on Cape Howell. Serge makes his way out to the Cape and does indeed find a gravesite there, but he remembers it being a place where he once inscribed a promise with Lena on one of the rocks. The world that Serge woke up in doesn't seem to have a place for him within it. Not anymore. 3 strangers come up behind Serge and state that he must be the ghost of the boy who died a decade prior and demand he accompany them. The leader of the group is Karsh, who claims that somebody told them they would find Serge at the Cape and to go fetch him. The 3 advance on Serge, but are stopped by the arrival of Kid. Remember Kid from the opening that was all Serge's dream, or maybe it wasn't, we don't really know yet? Yeah, that Kid. Kid's attitude and Karsh's orders clash on the battlefield and everyone fights. Team Serge wins, of course, and Karsh's men, named Salt and Pepper, run away after being defeated. Karsh stays behind a moment to sound all threatening, then hightails it out of there too. Kid makes sure Surge is okay, telling him that she couldn't stand letting bullies get away with being bullies like that. She seems to disbelieve Surge when he claims he's never seen them before, but almost immediately then offers to team up with him. They can watch each other's backs, and hey, maybe it was fate that brought them together in that moment. Not knowing anything about her really, Surge refuses for the time being. Anyway, Kid comments that she'll be heading north to the town of Termina. Seems like a good place as any to check out now that Surge knows that he's a ghost or something. But first, sleep. In the morning, Lena wakes Surge up, decides that he must have hit his head and his memories are all weird now and that's why he thinks he's the grown-up version of the Surge who died. Yeah, that makes sense. But she's drawn to him and she can't leave someone with brain damage to just wander around on their own, so she decides she's gonna go with him to Termina. The group makes their way through Fossil Valley, running into the delightfully delightful Sultan Pepor, commiserating over how they lost to Surge last time. What a convenient time for a rematch! In which they're defeated again! Surprise, surprise. The group arrives in Termina, where they see a young man, Glenn, talking with a shopkeeper about how Dragoon Knights have been blocking the road and goods can't get through. He apologizes and says they should be gone soon. The shopkeeper asks about Karsh, and the young man mentions that he was last seen ghost hunting down south. Surge's ears are burning. The man also casually says that Lord Viper ordered this little ghost hunt, so, maybe this Viper guy knows something. Should probably go find him. Maybe at the festival that's literally named after this guy, because nothing says ego like having an entire town celebrate you and your achievements. Lord Viper resides in Viper Manor, of course, which is well guarded, so the party has to sneak in. They get close to the manor and then wait until nightfall to sneak inside under cover of darkness. The group tricks one of the staff into believing that they're all new helpers he sent for, and in return for feeding dragons, he'll give them a key to the rest of the manor. Because that's how you treat staff, I guess. Do your job and I'll let you go somewhere completely unrelated to your job. After disguising themselves as guards so as to not seem extra suspicious, Surge and Co. make their way deeper into the impressively large manor, getting caught and tripped up a good few times, but still pushing onward. Eventually, the party encounters a young girl named Marcy and an old man, the latter of whom recognizes Surge and comments that he's grown. The man reveals himself to be a prophet of time and explains that many other worlds exist in other dimensions where other timelines play out. Basic multiverse theory in a nutshell. But he's aware that this world isn't the one that Surge grew up in, and that 10 years ago was the pivotal moment that split the timelines, something where Surge stood an even chance of either living or dying. In Surge's world, he lived and grew up. In this world, he died, and everyone went on without him. How did Surge cross over into this timeline? Who knows? But the prophet does know that when such pivotal moments occur, it's called Angelus Errare, where angels lose their way. There's a theory that says those divergent points on a timeline aren't super solid and can sometimes fluctuate into each other, possibly resulting in the ability to cross into the other timeline, and maybe Surge is super important to the world and the vacuum created by his absence in this world pulled him across to another dimension to do what needs to be done according to cosmic destiny.
But hey, that's just a theory.
Also, Marcy is a super strong Dragoon and doesn't take kindly to Surge's presence, so she attempts to upend destiny by attacking everyone. Sigh. Once defeated, she runs away, vowing revenge. The prophet seems to think that was all very funny. The party continues through the manor, probably kind of messed up by the knowledge that they just discovered, and then comes across a weird person named Harl. Harl informs everyone that she's the right-hand man to someone named Lynx, hits on Surge, tells everyone to leave, hits on Surge again, and then leaves. But not before hitting on Surge one final time. The party ascends to higher floors and encounters another old man in one of the rooms. This is General Viper, the man they've all been looking for. He claims he has no idea who Surge is, and certainly doesn't recall sending anybody to find him. But then a new person appears. A man with the face of a cat. The mysterious Lynx. Kid and Lynx have some history between them, with her demanding that he give up the frozen flame, and him revealing that she's part of a group of thieves called the Radical Dreamers. Lynx tells Kid that he doesn't have the frozen flame, but that it lies in the place where past and future collide. Kid is more than happy to settle old scores by fighting Lynx, dragging the rest of the party along for the ride. Lynx is defeated, but in a twist, Lynx wasn't the real Lynx. The one they fought was a shadow, a mere illusion of Lynx, as the real Lynx reveals after, dropping his invisibility cloak or something. As he asks Surge what he desires, whether Surge wishes to do away with the fact that he was done away with in this timeline, a high-pitched buzzing emits from the glowing object on the desk, filling the room. Surge begins to have visions of calamity once again, along with his own face superimposed with that of Lynx. Lynx informs Surge that the world will end, and when this happens, the world will be at odds with Surge, and Lynx knows this not because he's predicting the future, but merely reciting history. Just then, a woman named Riddell walks into the room to ask her father, Viper, about something, and is immediately taken hostage by Kid, who uses her as leverage to escape. The party is followed and cornered on a high balcony with no way to flee. Lynx pulls a dagger from under his cloak and throws it, catching Kid in the arm and forcing her to release Viper's daughter. Injured, Kid staggers to the edge of the balcony and falls. Lynx waxes philosophical about life and death, and then tells Surge he's been waiting for him for a very long time, which is creepy enough all on its own, but then Lynx calls Surge the Assassin of Time and the Chrono Trigger, and oh hey, I think I remember that game. Lynx beckons to him, but Surge decides that his odds are better just jumping over the side of the balcony and into the ocean below. Next thing Surge knows, he's waking up inside a strange woman's house. The others inform him that he was saved by Korcha, a wild child ferryman who rescued them all from the waters and brought them here to Guldove. Kid teases Surge about being so weak that he passed out after a relatively short fall, but then gets dizzy and collapses onto the ground. The village doctor informs everyone that she's been poisoned with Hydra venom and will likely die in 2 days without Hydra humor to neutralize the poison. The only catch is that Hydras are extinct here, so that's a problem. But just because they're extinct here doesn't mean they're extinct everywhere, though. Hydras may be rare, but there's a slim chance they can be found on the mainland rather than here on the island. It's a very slim chance, and Kid might not have the time it would take to find one. Her chances are pretty grim. Kid seems to know how dire things are, too, as she gives Surge her amulet as a keepsake. She babbles a bit incoherently about the Prophet's words and angels losing their way and things starting and oh wait! There might be no Hydras left here, but maybe there are some in the world Surge originally came from. That sure seems to be what the village shamans Stina and Daria imply anyway. They learn about Surge's past and tell him to seek out a dimensional distortion that might get him back to his own world where indeed Hydras may still thrive. Or at least exist. It's something anyway. Korcha takes the party from Guldove back to Termina by boat, and then they go onward to Opasa Beach, where Surge first woke up in this alternate world. Surge investigates an odd glowing spot on the ground, which turns out to be a wormhole that connects the two parallel worlds. Surge can use this, plus Kid's amulet, to travel back and forth between the two timelines. Right, time to find a Hydra. And where better to find one than in the Hydra Marshes? It's a long and treacherous slog through the maze-like marshes, a place filled with giant insects and narrow paths and, this guy named Biba, who likes summoning his friends and also making bad puns. Leave it to Biba! Once Biba's defeated, it gives you a flute you can use to call a wingipede. Doing so results in it attacking Surge, which results in it getting smacked into submission. But the battle cracked the platform that everyone was standing on, and so they all fall through and into an underground cavern. Onward once more until Surge and the others get closer to the Hydra, which is actually being guarded by some dwarves who view it as the deity of the forest, the thing that's instrumental to keep the forest alive. So, time to defeat the dwarves who are just living their best lives and paying homage to their god. Yeah, this is a pretty awkward boss battle, all things considered. And not made any easier by knowing that you have to kill the Hydra itself to get the humor you need. Good job, Surge and party. You've destroyed a god and an ecosystem to save a friend. I hope it was worth it. Surge jumps between worlds once again at Opasa Beach, heads back to Termina, and meets up with Korcha, who takes everyone back to Guldove by boat. The doctor makes use of the Hydra humor to whip up an antidote to Kid's poison. With the antidote and another night of rest, Kid makes a full recovery. In the morning, Kid asks Surge what he plans to do now. After all, now that he knows he can go back to his own world, he has the option to leave everything behind him and just go back to the life he'd been living. Surge once again has one of his weird calamity visions and remembers Lynx calling him the Assassin of Time and the Chrono Trigger. He decides to not forget everything he's just learned, but instead to figure out what's going on, what his purpose here is. Korcha takes everyone back to Termina by boat, and there they overhear Glenn the Dragoon talking to the shopkeeper again. This time it's about how Viper and his men are headed to Fort Dragonia, near the nation of Por, because there's suspicious goings-on there and also rumors about the Frozen Flame, which Kid mentioned earlier when she was talking to Lynx. Glenn's not with them because he had to stay behind and take care of Viper's daughter. But regardless of Glenn's woes, Kid advises Surge that what they just overheard could turn into a bad situation quickly, since Fort Dragonia is a ruin built by an extinct race of people and also the site of ancient mystical rituals. Combine that with Por doing weird stuff, and who knows what kind of fresh hell might be unleashed. Glenn overhears everybody overhearing, and while he recognizes exactly who everyone is, he's all, yeah, well, I guess there are more important things than bringing in wanted criminals. By the way, if you do want to get to that fort, you're gonna need a boat, and you should probably see this old dude who lives on a nearby island. Okay, thanks, bye! Good thing there's a guy with a boat at the docks right now, am I right? Korcha agrees to lend the party his boat in exchange for being given an artifact called the Dragon Tear if they ever find it. Oh, and also if Kid agrees to marry him. She puts off agreeing by saying she'll consider it once she settles her score with Lynx, and Korcha accepts that as good enough for him. Despite Kid's obvious discomfort with even considering marrying Korcha, the party now has access to Korcha's boat and can traverse the waters. The nearby island has a burned-out hermit's hut, destroyed by Harl on Lynx's orders. The man who lived there was an ally to the Acacia Dragoons, the organization that Glenn belongs to, that Viper belongs to, which begs the question of what Viper and Lynx are doing working together. Harl is disappointed that the old man himself wasn't there for her to dispatch, but she's happy enough to slow Surge and the group down by attacking them. Once Harl is defeated and vanishes, the old man, Radius, comes out of hiding. Seeing that all of Lynx's minions are gone, he comments that Riddell informed him that Lynx and Viper were on their way to Fort Dragonia, and he decided to play it safe and hide. He's confident that Lynx is acting on his own and that Viper doesn't know what transpired on the island. Even though Radius's house is burned down, his super strong secret underground fort should still be intact, which is a great place to rest and gather intel. Radius says he used to be part of the Dragoons along with Glenn's father, Garai. When Garai died, Radius vowed to watch over his sons, retiring from active duty once Glenn's brother Dario earned his father's sword. But Dario also died, and it was around then when Lynx first approached Viper, catching his attention with stories of the Frozen Flame. According to legend, the Frozen Flame can cure all disease and fulfill any wish. Radius doesn't know what Lynx's true plans are, but he thinks that Viper's been swayed enough to want to overthrow Por with the power of the Frozen Flame. Por is a militant and brutal nation, so maybe Viper just wants to bring peace to the world by ending such regimes, and maybe Lynx just wants the same thing, but that's all Radius really knows, as he's vowed to stay out of all worldly conflicts, and that's why he became an island-dwelling hermit. Also, there might be a ghost ship out there, so everyone should be careful when sailing the waters. Yeah, because that's the real takeaway from all of that exposition. Oh shit, there really is a ghost ship? Well, it's really a pirate ship, but still, it's a very foggy pirate ship, so it's still creepy. The captain of the ship, Fargo, demands to know what everyone's intentions are, since it's obvious that the group is on their way to Mount Pyre and Fort Dragonia, and it hasn't escaped his notice that Lynx and Viper ships are headed that way too. It's easy to convince him that nobody in the group is working for Lynx or Viper, though, but he does warn everyone that Lynx is a cold-blooded monster, an incarnation of death, so maybe don't mess with him. He and his crew have tangled with Lynx before, and those encounters led them to disguising their ship as a ghost ship, to disguise and distract so Lynx doesn't come after them again. Needless to say, Fargo is not a fan of the plan to go after Lynx and stop whatever he's doing. Far be it for him to stop anyone, but he does issue a test. If the party can't defeat the surprise onslaught of possessed suits of armor, I guess, then there's no way they're strong enough to stand against Lynx. Fortunately, said possessed suits of armor pose no challenge, so... hell, great, now a giant evil parrot named Polly is a secondary test? Cool, thanks, I hate it. Once Polly is defeated, Fargo has to concede that the group is stronger than he realized, so now he's fine with even lending his strength to the cause and fighting Lynx by Surge's side. Just kidding, he attacks in order to see if everyone is strong enough to beat him too. Fargo, you have issues. Fargo loses, but Surge takes some damage and collapses at Fargo's feet. Why? Because the freaking pirates tranquilized him. And the others. Lovely. Everyone is thrown in the brig. When they wake up, they're promptly attacked by an undead skeleton and discover that while they were unconscious, an actual ghost ship has drawn up alongside the fake ghost ship, and now the place is overrun with ghosts and ghouls. The party makes their way from the brig to the main deck to find Fargo handily beating up on a few of the undead menaces before sustaining injury. Fargo asks Surge to steer the pirate ship away from the ghost ship, whereupon a creature called Deadhead attacks. Once Deadhead is defeated, the ghost ship vanishes and everything returns to normal. Fargo doesn't exactly apologize for, drugging everyone and locking them up, but he does give the party some advice about what to expect if they want to continue the journey to Fort Dragonia, so that's better than nothing, I guess? He recommends that the group pay a visit to the Water Dragon, since Mount Pyre is full of, fire, and maybe having the power of water will protect everyone from getting fried. So it's off to see the dragon, the wonderful dragon of water. A Water Dragon Isle is impassable in the current world, but in the world where Surge came from, it's accessible. So accessible that there's a bunch of fairies living there. Or there would be if it wasn't for the fact that dwarves are attacking and trying to take over. Surge and friends drive back the dwarven invasion, including the ones driving a freaking tank, at which point the dwarves comment that they're being driven off their land once more, and once more I feel guilty as hell for beating these guys up. Life is complicated, y'all. Surge, though, presses onward to visit the Water Dragon, who looks like a big-ass blue frog. He asks for the dragon's powers and protection, which the dragon freely gives. Surge and his friends now have a way to survive the flames. While Surge spoke to the water dragon, the remaining fairies have come out of hiding. They say that the doors were originally driven out of their homes by humanity, and so were displaced onto fairyland, and so they were the invaders there, but only because humans invaded them first. The fairies seem pretty pissed at humans for even existing at this point, and given what just happened, I can't entirely say I blame them. But for the moment, there are more pressing concerns. Time to travel back to the other world and go to Mount Pyre, which very much lives up to its fiery name. But it's not just red-hot lava monsters that the group must contend with. Salt and Pepper were lying in wait, determined to redeem themselves and waylay Surge. It doesn't work out that way, though. The group presses on through the mountain until they encounter Karsh and his cronies, Marcia and Zoa, from blocking Surge's way. They attack and put up an impressive fight, but are no match for Surge and his friends. Zoa says to Karsh that it's almost time, and the group retreat through a doorway, vowing revenge. Surge follows them through the doorway and has another vision of the events that occurred at the beginning of the game. The same strange tower and the bodies of his friends on the floor, a bloodied knife in his hands. The tower, of course, he can now recognize as being Fort Dragonia. The fort is vast, with many interconnected sections and walkways and puzzles to solve to progress, which seems like a really weird design choice for a military fort, but what do I know? It's a long trek, but eventually the party reaches an area that's eerily familiar to Surge, one that looks an awful dang lot like the one he dreamed of when the game began. Surge stands before the big door and has a flash of visions once again, but rather than waking up, the door opens and he can pass through into a room filled with dragon statues. Also Viper and Lynx, who have been expecting Surge's arrival. Viper says that he has nothing personal against Surge, but, he's in the way and needs to be eliminated. Viper challenges Surge to a friendly sparring match, which Surge wins. Viper is impressed with Surge's skills, but before he can say or do more, he is literally stabbed in the back by Lynx. Lynx, who declares that Viper has outlived his usefulness. Lynx, who throws himself into a battle against Surge with full intent to kill. He does not kill, however, and when the battle ends, he gives Surge an existential crisis by asking who he really is and what his purpose is, why he's even alive. More than merely an existential crisis, though, as Lynx reveals that he and Surge are connected, and that destroying one will destroy the other. He likens it to how dualities in nature are merely different sides of a same coin. The dragon tear glows, Surge gets hit with a massive migraine, Lynx seems oddly smug about all of this, and when Surge raises his head once more, there's a sinister expression on his face. He's also a lot more talkative than he was previously, urging his friends to kill Lynx right now. The battle begins, and rather than being on the perspective of Surge and his friends, the perspective is now on Lynx, who is soundly beaten. Surge once again urges Kid to kill Lynx, but when she seems reluctant, he offers to do it for her. He shouts that he'll avenge Luca on her behalf, and Kid shouts at Surge to wait. She never told Surge about Luca. Kid realizes that Lynx is possessing Surge about a second before he runs her through with a knife, stabbing her through the abdomen. She collapses to the floor. Surge stands over her, blood dripping from the knife in his hand, a smirk on his lips. Using Surge's body, Lynx taunts them all before picking up the dragon tear, calling it the key to the Gate of Fate. He tells Surge, still trapped in Lynx's body, to follow him to the Sea of Eden before teleporting the two of them away. Surge awakens in a distorted place that looks a lot like a painting. He encounters someone else there, a person by the name of Sprig, who first mistook Surge for a wandering spirit, because physical entities don't exactly end up there often. Sprig talks about chaos and life's lack of meaning, and generally sounds like a first-year philosophy student who just left a class on nihilism, and then goes to sleep, because that's what you do when life is meaningless and nothing matters. Surge tries to leave, though, and Sprig decides, nah, sleep is for the weak. I'ma come with this Catman weirdo who just showed up in my extra-dimensional house, because why not? She figures Surge may be her only way out of the temporal vortex she's currently in, and she's the only one who can unlock the nearby tower that Surge needs to traverse anyway. The two make their way up to the tower, where Harl waits for Lynx. Surge says he's not Lynx, but Harl informs him that he is now. Certainly everyone else will believe him to be Lynx and treat him accordingly, so in a sense, doesn't that make him Lynx after all? Cool, good questions about the subjectivity of reality. This doesn't hurt my brain even a little bit. Harl informs him that he can probably rewrite the memory and forget being Surge if he had the dragon tear, and maybe that's for the best since Surge died 10 years ago after all. Who can say for sure that the memories are accurate and that anyone is who they really think they are anyway? An image of Surge appears, claims to be reality, and then walks away. Sprig comments to Surge in Lynx's body that he has to choose to open the doorway to reality. If he picks the wrong door, he'll never make it back to the real world. I mean, there are two real worlds at this point, so Mimicking the pattern of the illusory surge on another floor, the duo finds themselves in what look like an MC Escher painting, and Harl decides now that she's going to come along whether anybody wants her to or not. Everybody probably has a reality-melting headache by the time they finish getting through the strange architecture of the tower, but eventually they reach a huge hole in the floor, jump through it, and find themselves in the Hydra Marshes of Surge's homeworld. Ooh, a familiar place that doesn't distort my understanding of 3D space. I love it! Harl advises Surge to go back to where angels lose their way, which means Opasa Beach. Only when they arrive, the dimensional tear that allowed Surge to previously travel between timelines won't open. Harl says this is because the missing piece of the world has been found, everything has been set to rights, and there's no need for any connection between two timelines anymore. Anyway, Sprague suggests explaining everything to Surge's mother, so it's back to Arnie Village. Surge's mother, Marge, is understandably confused when her son confesses that he's actually Surge in a Catman body, but thinks that if all of this is true, then the story really began not 10 years ago, but 14, on the night of a big storm. Surge's father, Wazuki, and Lena's father, Miguel, took a boat into the ocean despite the dangers of a storm due to an emergency. The boat capsized, the two were knocked out, and when they woke up they were in the Dead Sea, which was called the Sea of Eden at the time. Miguel never returned, and Wazuki was deeply changed by the incident. Marge's story is interrupted by the arrival of Radius, the hermit from the other world, who is surprised to see Lynx alive. Radius attacks, but can't hold out against Surge, or Lynx's strength. He accepts that Lynx isn't Lynx, and that other timelines exist, impressively easily. He's intrigued to know that Viper may still be alive in this other world, as the Viper from this world disappeared 3 years ago. He offers to accompany Surge in order to discover more, starting in Termina, because options for places to gather info are pretty limited around here. People aren't exactly pleased to see Lynx in Termina, ordering him out. Much of the town seems deserted, shut down and shuttered up. One of the guards posted in the town says that the military is at the docks, and nobody can go there without permission from Commander Norris, not even Sir Lynx. Norris is at Viper Manor, which is... ruined. Completely destroyed. Radius mourns for what was lost, especially Viper and the other Dragoons. He says he tried to investigate, but all he could discover was that a man named Lynx approached the general shortly before he disappeared. In the other world, Viper didn't disappear, so Lynx's approach must have been another pivotal event that ties the two timelines together. Norris is in the basement of the manor, and he greets Surge as Lynx, telling him that the frozen flame hasn't been found in the ruins of the manor. He seems to notice that Lynx isn't quite himself, which Radius confirms. Norris certainly knows Radius by reputation, and trusts his word when Radius explains that Lynx's body is inhabited by somebody else's soul. Norris is happy to give up information when Radius requested of him, and states that Lynx first approached the military in Por about tracking down the mythical frozen flame, which he believed to lay somewhere in the El Nido archipelago. Rumor led Norris to Viper Manor, where he discovered that Viper was also searching for the artifact. Norris was eventually recalled, but not before hearing about Viper's disappearance and the destruction of the manor. Rumors began to surface that Viper and his men were headed east towards the Dead Sea, but try as he might, Norris could find no way to go past the Dead Sea's coral perimeter. Radius puts the clues together and remembers that it was 3 years ago, at the time of Viper's disappearance, that the Sea of Eden was renamed as the Dead Sea, and thinks that investigating there could yield more information about what the true Lynx's true plans are. He theorizes that the demi-humans in Marbul probably know more about it than humans do, and what a coincidence that Surge is currently wearing the body of a demi-human. Using Norris's military boat, the party heads to Marbul, the island of demi-humans. It wasn't always their home, but after Por colonized their old home, they were all sort of forced to find a new one and so settled on this new island. Humans followed them and stripped the island of its resources, and now most of the demi-humans work as low-paid laborers on a cruise ship, and can this game get any more blatant with its colonialism equals bad message? Anyway, rumors say that the Dead Sea is guarded by a fearsome dragon god, and that there may be a way in called Death's Door, but nobody really knows where it is. The sage on the cruise ship might, though. That night, the party hears voices outside the hut they're staying in. They investigate and see a mermaid standing on a bridge, who then jumps into the water and swims away. A mystery. Only not so much a mystery, because the next morning that mermaid is in the water beside the hut, and she begs to go with the group to the cruise ship, the Zelbess, although she doesn't reveal her true reasons for asking. The Zelbess is quite a sail away, but when the party arrives, it sure does look familiar, as does the ship's captain. It's Fargo. In this world, he operates a cruise ship rather than a pirate ship. Kind of a tyrannical cruise ship, since he preaches that power is justice and lets his employees be abused if they're not strong enough to defend themselves. Fargo is scolded by the mermaid, Irene's, for living too much in his memories. Turns out that Fargo and Irene's sister Zelbess were a thing in the past, but Zelbess died. Fargo thought that their child Marcy had perished along with Zelbess, but Marcy is, in fact, alive and might be the key to reuniting humans with demi-humans. Fargo isn't moved by Irene's words, so Irene's changed her tactics and bluntly requests that Fargo free the sage that he has in his employ. And employ might as well be in quotation marks. Marbul is pretty diminished without the power and knowledge that the sage holds. Fargo stubbornly refuses, saying that he's fine with how things are now. In the other world, this guy poisoned people and locked them in the brig. I guess assholishness transcends dimensions. When Norris questions Fargo, Fargo denies that the sage is even on board. I guess he didn't notice anyone eavesdropping. But he might be willing to relent if he's entertained. He makes the group a deal. Win big at the casino, i.e. play roulette against him, and he'll let them have access to the sage. Lose, and he'll have to hand over Norris's ship. Sigh. Playing against the casino boss means the game is rigged though, and Fargo wins. Now that the party has lost their boat and swimming back to shore really isn't an option, they may as well take the time to see a magic show that's being offered as part of the cruise ship's entertainment. The magician, Snef, makes a woman float, light as a feather, stiff as a board style, which would probably be more impressive in a world where magic didn't already openly exist, but hey, entertainment is entertainment. Cue the usual audience heckler, whom Snef turns into a cat and back. Dude doesn't seem all that impressed, but Norris gets the idea that maybe if everyone in the party was a cat, they could sneak around the ship with greater ease and get what they need to escape and return to Marbul. The party gets Snef to turn them all into cats as part of a stage performance, and then run off before Snef can turn them back. It's time to do some sneaking. They discover that Fargo's roulette game is controlled from under the casino by a magnet, meaning that Fargo can force wins or losses whenever it suits his needs. Okay then, time to steal the handle that controls the magnet machine, get changed back into not cats, and challenge Fargo to another match. He seems unhappy when he loses. He recognizes that his scam has ended, and credit to him, at least stays true to his word and gives the boat back, and also grants access to the part of the ship where the sage is being held. The sage doesn't take too kindly to humans asking him about the Dead Sea. Given that humans have done some rotten things to his people, he has no reason to trust them. Humans take without remorse, and as he sees the party is no different, he attacks in order to defend what few freedoms he has left. He does seem somewhat impressed when the battle ends, though, and sensing that everyone is serious about entering the Dead Sea for reasons that aren't merely selfish and demanding. He cautions, but advises the group to seek out a place near the Dead Sea where the tides are different, and then to use an item called the Fiddler Crab in that area. Nature will take over from there. The party finds the place near the Dead Sea that the sage described, uses the Fiddler Crab somehow, and the coral breaks to reveal an entrance, Death's Door. Inside a cave, they find the evil sword Masamune, which blocks anyone from passing. To counter it, they need the Einlanzer, an ancient Dragonian holy sword that Radius knows to be at the grave of Garai, the last person to rightfully wield the blade. Garai's grave is inside a cavern on the Isle of the Damned, a demonic resting ground. Oh, good. The Isle of the Damned is about as delightful as it sounds, a dark place full of bones and black waters and demons out for blood. Garai's grave is deep within the island, overlooking a surprisingly cheerful field of flowers. Surge as Lynx examines the grave and finds the names of everyone in the party, with himself called Lynx, but I'm going to keep calling him Surge because it's Surge in there, goddammit, engraved upon it. Radius runs up to the grave and sobbingly apologizes, recalling the time when he and Garai found the Masamune originally, and overcome with the negativity within the sword, Radius struck Garai down, killing his friend and fellow Dragoon before regaining his senses. It's Radius's fault that Garai is in the grave to begin with. From beyond the grave, Garai's spirit suggests that if Radius feels bad for what he did, then he could make amends by dying right here and now. His spirit rises, and Radius entreats him to give over the Einlanzer, but Garai pulls a, "you can have it when you pry it from my cold, dead hand," which, I guess was why everyone came here to begin with, so... Anyway, Garai's spirit attacks, seeking vengeance against the one who killed him, and by extension those who ally with Radius. Upon his defeat, Surge receives the Einlanzer. Radius sorrowfully begs Garai to wait just a little longer to have his final revenge, just until he's done helping save the world. Then he'll be back to atone for his crimes. Returning to Death's Door, the Einlanzer's power overcomes that of the Masamune and allows the party to pass. Inside the Dead Sea is a strange place filled with ruined structures, broken sections of road and buildings. Also places where the water is solid, frozen in time, and so is traversable by merely walking. Very strange place indeed. Inside one of the ruined buildings, there's a series of screens and computer panels, technology very much at odds with the other parts of the world visited thus far. Norris has some degree of electrical engineering and gets the systems up and running again. The screens display information about a parasitic life form known as Lavos, which showed up over 65 million years ago. But hang on, this is dated 2300 AD, and overlooking the fact that AD stands for Anno Domini and means the year of the Lord and is basically a Christian calendar thing thrown into a game that doesn't have Christianity in it, this still means that the report is from the future. At the center of the Dead Sea lies the Tower of Geddon, which is similarly frozen in time as the rest of the area. Inside the tower, things look weirdly like the Shinra building from Final Fantasy VII, only with more robots walking around. And ghosts, can't forget the ghosts. Surge keeps seeing what looks like a child running off in the distance, who eventually leads them to a room filled with ghosts, pale echoes of the people who were here before. Nobody else seems to see them though, nor do they react to the large glowy swirly portal up ahead. At least not until Surge takes them right through it. The portal takes them to another place, one that doesn't seem connected in any way to where they just were. It's as though once again, time and space and the idea of reality are malleable here in ways that just don't apply elsewhere. The ghosts are still here though. The party comes across a monument with a large bell with a few ghosts around it. One of them says that they worked hard to ensure everyone's safety, but it was all for nothing because Surge. Thanks to Surge, their hope of healing the world has failed, or rather will fail at some point in the future. The world will be destroyed because of Surge. The ghost figures vanish and somebody new arrives, advising Surge to ignore the others as they're just echoes of those long gone. This man, whose name is Miguel, formally welcomes everyone to the Tower of Geddon, Time Crash Ground Zero. He not only recognizes and remembers Surge, but is, in fact, the same Miguel who was lost at sea with Wazuki 14 years ago, Lena's father. When he and Wazuki found themselves in the Dead Sea, then called the Sea of Eden, it looked different, less destroyed. A mysterious voice commanded them to bring the wounded child, which Wazuki interpreted to be Surge. He refused to give up his son without a fight, and so moved deeper into the building, leaving Miguel behind. Miguel tells Surge that the place changed from mysterious to outright ruin 10 years ago, when the Sea of Eden officially transformed into the Dead Sea. Time ceased passing. Living things didn't age, they didn't die, everything remained static. It's beautiful, it's quiet, it's lonely, and it's a future that was eliminated, something that will not now ever be. He recaps some multiverse theory, that each action taken or not taken divides the timeline and creates new realities from the choices people never took, failures and successes that influence a future that other timelines may never know about. Something in the past changed, and thus the future that exists in the Dead Sea will never exist anywhere else. Possibilities held outside time. Trippy enough for you? Miguel asks Surge if he wants to become one with this world, part of eternity, and never have to worry about anything again. No more struggles, no more pain, no more anything other than life suspended in a moment. Surge refuses. Miguel understands that Surge seeks to restore the dimensional distortion that allowed him to jump between timelines, and says that defeating him and liberating this world will restore that distortion. Which sounds an awful lot like bringing back the distortion will bring back the possibility of a desolate future into play, and that doesn't exactly sound like a good thing. A battle ensues, with Surge having to bring an end to his friend's father, his father's friend, a man trapped outside of time for 14 years. Miguel congratulates Surge on growing so strong. Maybe Surge and his allies can indeed provide a better hope, a better future for humanity if they can defeat fate. He goes on to describe the Dead Sea as the true form of the planet's future. Goody, it sounds like the future is some sort of boss battle. This isn't even my final form! Anyway, he describes how in 1999, when the alien parasite known as Lavos awoke, the world was on the brink of destruction. Lavos fell from space and built itself a cozy nest inside the planet, feeding on its energy until it could awaken and show its true terrifying form. The world would have been destroyed had it not been for the efforts of a teenage boy and his friends. They saw the destruction that would happen in the future, in the year 2300, and even if it wouldn't have been remotely in their lifetimes, they couldn't turn aside and ignore the threat. They jumped about through many eras of history, eventually defeating Lavos and saving the world. In other words, spoilers for Chrono Trigger if you haven't played it yet. Their mission to save the world definitely did save it, but it also changed the course of history. The world was on track to be destroyed by Lavos as it had been for millions of years, but since that had been averted, a new future was born from those actions, with the old future ceasing to exist. The ghosts appear once again, explaining that the dead future, the one that had been averted with Lavos' defeat, is about to come back into play, undoing all of the work that they did to save the world when they were alive. Once more, the possibility of Lavos rising and consuming the world is very real, and Surge seems to be the axis on which all of this pivots. If Surge gives up, if he does nothing, if he stays in the Dead Sea and ceases to be an influence, then the terrible future will not come to pass. Probably. The area begins to rumble and shake. It looks like fate has made its own decision and started to carry it out now. The frozen flame, once again getting a mention, needs a chosen one to awaken it, but fate, or rather, fate, in all caps, doesn't want that happening right now. It would rather destroy the frozen flame and everything around it rather than let someone else have it. Miguel tells the others to leave, now before they lose their chance. He bids them farewell, states openly that Surge is the frozen flame's chosen one, just in case nobody's figured it out yet, and then the party retreats. It looks unlikely that they'll make it, but suddenly a freaking dragon swoops down, tells them to grab on, and flies them to safety. That escalated quickly. Then, there's really no good way to explain this, so I'll just say that the Dead Sea sort of explodes. Yeah, so that just happened. The dragon that rescued Surge and friends has dropped them safely off on a rocky shore. It wants to see how all this plays out, what sort of future Surge will bring to the world. It warns about preparing for sorrow, and then takes to the skies, leaving the party standing before the ocean. Its words travel to Surge across the distance, telling him that if he truly wishes to defy the goddess of fate, he should speak with the ancient dragon gods who rest across the El Nido archipelago. The true Sea of Eden, rather than the Dead Sea, will be revealed when the powers of the dragon gods are united. Surge has himself a mighty fetch quest. But now, the dimensional distortion should have reopened, and upon checking Opasa Beach, this is indeed so. Surge jumps from his homeworld to the other world, where he sees a young boy being chased by some shadow cats, similar to the ones Lynx used for his illusions. The party dispels the shadow cats and saves the boy, who thanks them by warning them to be careful. There are a lot of monsters running around now, thanks to someone named Surge leading a rebellion. God damn it, Lynx in Surge's body. The group heads for Termina, where poor soldiers appear to be in charge here now as much as they were in Surge's original world. In the back room of a bar, Karsh and Zoa are hanging out. They tell Surge about how, after their last battle, they too went inside Fort Dragonia and saw the body of General Viper on the floor, along with Surge, possessed by Lynx of course, vanishing with Kid's body. As it turns out though, Viper didn't actually die after getting stabbed by Lynx. Karsh, Zoa, and Marcy took Viper to Radius's old hut so he could recover in safety. In the meantime, Poor has taken over Termina, which even Norris isn't happy about despite him actually being part of the Poor military. Zoa and Karsh have pieced together that the source of all this chaos is actually Lynx, not Surge. First things first though, Lady Riddell needs rescuing from Viper Manor, which is also under the control of the Poor military. Karsh hands over some shards of something that Marcy collected from Fort Dragonia, the Tear of Hate. On the way out of Termina, the party encounters Norris. Not the Norris that's allied himself with Surge. No, the Norris from this world who is still allied with Lynx. Before things get too awkward, he's called away, but invites Surge, whom he thinks is Lynx, to pay him a visit in the manor later. With Lynx being an ally of Poor, the guards allow the party access to Viper Manor with no trouble. Inside, Riddell is being questioned as to her father's location, as well as the location of the frozen flame. She says she doesn't know, and wouldn't tell them even if she did. Ha! Take that, Poor! Paying a visit to Norris, he comments that when they saw each other in Termina, he thought something was kind of off with Lynx. Much as with the Norris from Surge's homeworld, this Norris gets the explanation that the man before him might look like Lynx, but is really somebody else. And much like the other Norris, he takes this news surprisingly well. He hands over the prison key so that Surge can rescue Riddell, and asks everyone to meet up with him once that's done. In a cell, Riddell is being threatened by Orcha, the cook, who has been turned evil by the Poor military. Surge and friends rush in to stop her from being hurt, only to find themselves on the receiving end of Orcha's wrath. Defeating him brings him back to his senses, along with having the wonderful effect of making the Poor guards think that Sir Lynx has gone mad and turned on them. They run and make it pretty easy to rescue Riddell from that point. In the entry hall, Norris takes over making sure that Riddell is safe. He asks Surge to distract the other guards while they make their escape, which results in having to fight a lab-made fighter named Grobik, who was brought in to add to the fighting strength of the poor military. Seeing one of their strongest defeated demoralizes many of the guards, but one of them takes the chance to send a giant freaking robot after the party. A robot that just won't quit, annoyingly, and begins chasing them through the manor, hurting them and preventing their escape. They lay the smackdown on the robot once again, but once again it rises and pursues them, jumping to a swinging chandelier to follow them. Then Grobik arrives and cuts down the chandelier, causing the robot to go crashing down to the floors below. Before the whole process can start again, the party smashes through a stained glass window and falls into the dragon stables. Hey, wouldn't it be hilarious if they released all the dragons and sent them stampeding over the soldiers outside? Why yes. Yes it would. Grobik, who only takes orders from those stronger than him, finds it interesting that Surge and his team are resisting the poor military so successfully, and decides, sure, he may as well take orders from Surge from now on since he's so strong. Surge gathers the weirdest allies sometimes. Now that the team has escaped from Viper Manor, they pay a visit to the true lord of the manor, General Viper, in his convalescent retreat on Hermit's Hideaway. That night, an explosion sounds from outside. It's Kid come to seek her vengeance on Lynx. Only she doesn't know that it's really Surge wearing Lynx's body, and that the Surge who's with her is actually Lynx wearing a Surge suit, so to speak. Funny how she doesn't get that Surge is acting really weird when people notice that Lynx is different just by talking at him for 30 seconds. There seems no escape, when suddenly Fargo swoops down on Polly the giant parrot thing and whisks everyone away to the safety of his pirate ship. Viper tells Surge that Lynx is headed for the Sea of Eden, and that he must be stopped from obtaining the frozen flame at all costs. Once again, it's off to the Dead Sea, or the Sea of Eden, or whatever it wants to be called at any point in time and space. Sea of Sea? Dead Eden? Dead Eden is the name of my new Darkwave band. What was known as Death's Door in the other world is known here as the Pearly Gates, which are unfortunately sealed away by the power of ancient dragons. Harl is full of information and eager to share it, and she tells Surge that to break the seal, he needs to bring together the relics from 6 dragons, just as the dragon who rescued everyone from the Dead Sea explained. The relics are scattered across both worlds, and they need to be brought to the Dead Sea, not the Sea of Eden, and unsealing the gate there will unlock the Sea of Eden here, and yes, that thing you're feeling right now is a headache from trying to understand how things work in this story. Oh, and one more thing. Lynx, in his guise as Surge, is already there. Unsealing the gate will only work to allow Surge, the physical form of Surge, beyond. Surge can't do it when he's trapped inside Lynx's skin. To fix that, Surge needs to find the Dragon Tier. So many fetch quests. First, the Dragon Relics. None of the dragons are particularly eager to give up the relics, not without Surge proving himself to them first. Or sometimes just being cranky and needing a smackdown. There's the Black Dragon, the Earth Dragon, the Water Dragon, the Fire Dragon, who seems unintimidating at first but then gets bigger, the Green Dragon, and finally the Sky Dragon. All of the dragons give Surge their protection by handing over their relics, and the Sky Dragon, more than any other, seems quite impressed with Surge having accomplished what he has. Upon receiving the Sky Dragon's final blessing, the Pearly Gates should be open to Surge. But he still needs to get his own form back, and for that, he still needs the Dragon Tier. In Goldove, the Oracle Dorea recognizes that the Tier of Hate, which Marcy handed over to Surge what feels like a lifetime ago now, is actually a piece of the Dragon Tier. She gifts to Surge the Dragon Emblem, one of the symbols of the Dragon Shamans that were passed down through the generations. If somebody has one, it makes sense for them to also have the other. Dorea recommends paying a visit to the shamans in the other world, that is to say Surge's original world, and requesting their aid, as they should recognize Surge's connection to them with both artifacts in hand. A quick dimension jump and some sailing later, and Surge is talking to the Oracle Stina, who agrees to lend Surge the Dragon Tier. The best place for Surge to start getting his body back is to return to the place where he lost it, Fort Dragonia. Inside a chamber is Surge, or rather Surge's body, still possessed by Lynx. He comments that it's too soon for Surge to get his body back, and then puts up a fight, only to be defeated. He basically pulls a, "Okay, gotta go, bye," maneuver and vanishes, and damn it, that's not fair! The party presses on, and finds themselves in front of the door that always appears in Surge's visions. No visions happen this time, though. The doors open unremarkably. Surge must go on alone, though, unaided by his companions. Inside, Surge places the Dragon Tier on a pedestal in the center of the room. The mural on the walls begins to tell the story of humanity's emergence in the world. All life on this planet was born in the sea. The life forms softly slumbered within the womb of our mother sea, until eventually they developed free will and were able to swim about the ocean freely. Then there came those that, not satisfied with life in the water, looked up from the ocean floor toward the blue skies and dreamt of the feel of the land. Eons passed before their preposterous dream became a reality, and they rose up from the seas onto the earth. The land became full of all kinds of creatures. Among those, the dragon lizards and the more evolved reptites thought they would reign over the earth forever, and for a long while, it seemed that they would. However, the unforeseen coming of the mighty one from the heavens suddenly smashed their kingdom to pieces. That one was known as Lavos, the Great Crimson Flame. Wielding absolute power, Lavos buried the dinosaurs, the kings of the land, in the space of a night. However, the timid apes, who had lived hidden in the forests, came into contact with the crimson flame that fell from the sky and evolved into humans. Or perhaps it was not evolution, but transformation. In this way, humans increased in number and filled the earth. The fearsome progeny of Lavos, who, like their progenitor, began to devour our mother planet. So wait, hang on a sec. Did early humans just see this gigantic space thing that wiped out the previous planetary rulers and go, dude, we gotta get on this guy's good side or we're all fucked? And ever since, all humanity has known is the desperate struggle to rise at the cost of someone else's downfall, because that was literally part of the event that turned us into what we are? I feel like this explains so much, and not just about this game. Anyway, the dragon tier uses its power to wrap Surge in a bubble of liquid, and then we get something that is decidedly symbolic, with a baby Surge rapidly growing up and then bursting from his magical womb as the young man he used to be, albeit rather more naked than usual. The dragon's tier, however, has shattered. Oracle Stina says that this isn't a surprise, but that Surge should remember that he also holds the fate of the dragon's tier from the other world, the shards from the tier of hate. Love and hate are two sides of the same coin, she explains, and that uniting the two might bring about the legendary Chrono Cross. The dragon tier that just shattered is now the tier of love, and Surge should take them to Divine Dragon Falls, which will hopefully give life to the powers of the Chrono Cross. File that info away for later. Surge heads to the Dead Sea Ruins, what's left after... yeah, that thing. Inside are distortions on the water. Surge steers the boat into one of them, and a voice, echoing from nowhere, deems him worthy of entering the Sea of Eden. And also the others with him, I guess. The 6 dragon relics float into the water and create a shining pillar of light, which transforms the area into something quite different. In the center of the sea is a raised triangle, water streaming down on all sides. There's an island at each of the triangle's points, named Past, Present, and Future. On each island is a shrine. Clotho, spinning the thread of life. Lachesis, measuring the thread of life. Atropos, cutting the thread of life. Well, that's not at all ominous. Strange mask things appear once Surge has visited all 3 of the islands, testing him and his resolve. Once they're defeated, the raised triangle waterfall in the center of the sea vanishes, replaced by an island called Future Ruins, upon which the time fortress, the Chronopolis, sits. The Chronopolis is the place that Miguel told the party about previously that he and Wazuki discovered on their ill-fated visit there 14 years ago. It's a military research complex from the year 2400, the future, or at least the possible future depending on Surge's actions. There are ghosts sitting around talking about an experiment involving the frozen flame to extract anti-annihilation energy and trace counter time, and all of this sounds right out of a messed up Star Trek episode. Or how about the ones that claim the El Nido Archipelago is just an artificially created island chain that was made 10,000 years ago thanks to a supercomputer named Fate? Oh, and also the save points in the game aren't just conventions to gaming, but are actual real physical objects that people interact with, which write and rewrite memory and also guide people's lives by memory manipulation, and this is what paradise is? And I'm fucking sorry, what the actual hell? This game just went 100% meta on me, and I think I need a minute to process how saving my game is a form of mind control. I'm back. I'm not sure how whole my mind is after that revelation, but I'm back. Oh no, wait, things are about to get all quantum again, since Surge at one point explores the computer terminals in one of the rooms, and finds that the people who designed this research lab not only know about other timelines, but know on which timeline their own research lab is built, and that reality itself is shaped by the observer because there are so many potential possibilities at every second, and only observation stabilizes possibility into fact. Yeah, okay, I have to move back into the plot of the game and not the fascinating world building, because otherwise the rest of this video will just be a series of questions about possibility and meaning and timelines, and we all have more important things to do than listen to that. Surge and the group get a thorough grounding in human genetics, history of timelines that no longer exist, mentions of a mythical ancient kingdom called Zeal, all sorts of weird and interesting stuff as they browse the screens. The scientists at the research facility sought a way to manipulate the flow of space-time. Their computer at Chronopolis, Fate, Yes, that same fate that artificially created El Nido 10,000 years ago has been watching and guiding two very close parallel worlds, carefully keeping inhabitants away from the main continent in order to keep its own history intact. If anything from El Nido influenced the main continent, the future that Fate knows and exists in would change, at least up to the year 2400 when the experiments on Chronopolis occurred. Can't have those pesky time paradoxes running around. But since the Sea of Eden turned into the Dead Sea in Surge's homeworld, Fate hasn't been able to manipulate anything in that world. It was such a drastic change that Fate lost contact and instead kept receiving information only from the other world, the world in which Surge died as a child. Deeper in the complex, the party finds a room labeled Project Kid, and part of the security measures for entering that room involve a fingerprint and retinal scan, which Surge passes, greeting him as the Chrono Trigger. This is why Lynx needed Surge's body from the beginning. He needed access to what lay beyond that sealed door, and only by being Surge could he actually gain entry. Inside the room, beneath what looks like a mechanical sun, lies an unconscious kid. And soon Lynx appears, still in his guise as Surge. Remember, Surge technically didn't get his body back so much as the Dragon's Tear forged him a new identical one, so his original body is still being possessed by Lynx. Lynx states that within the room lies the essence of Lavos, the living crimson stone, the frozen flame. Just as Lavos was called the Crimson Flame, the Frozen Flame is sort of a crystallized essence of Lavos. Lynx claims that he is the human incarnation of Fate, the supercomputer, a living interface. 14 years ago, when Wazuki and Miguel set out on their boat, they also had with them a very ill Surge, who had been attacked and poisoned by a panther demon. No doctor could save him, so they set out for Marboul to see the sage. But the storm grew worse, and they were blown off course onto an unfamiliar island, the island that holds the Chronopolis. The storm's severity had knocked out the power there for a short time, but by the time everything was restored, the frozen flame had found and latched onto Surge. It healed him, and unexpectedly also decided that it wasn't going to let anyone or anything else get access to itself. That included the Fate supercomputer. Only Surge had access, though he had no idea. Without the frozen flame, Fate couldn't complete its mission. To make matters worse, there was an old circuit hidden within Fate that was designed to hide from Fate's detection and also cause havoc by starting what Lynx described as a rebellion. Lynx commands Fate to bring out the traitorous program, called Prometheus, who then begs Surge to end the conflict between the dragons and Fate for the sake of the future, before Lynx orders Fate to delete Prometheus, crying that all who oppose the goddess of Fate will be destroyed. He then turns into, something that looks like a futuristic-looking technological humanoid, Fate itself, and demands that Surge show him what his purpose in being alive even is before attacking him. I guess even living interfaces need an upgrade every now and then. Sometimes you just have to become the sentient supercomputer you really are inside. Fate is a formidable foe, but eventually is overcome. Kid awakens as Fate's physical form vanishes, demanding to know what happened to her. She sees the frozen flame and makes a move to get it, but suddenly Harl appears and tells her to stop, to not touch it, because touching it will bring destruction and Surge and the others don't deserve that. She grabs it, there's a flash of light. Harl is knocked back. The dragons, in their lairs, sense that Fate has been defeated and that a time of change has arrived. Out of the ocean rises... a weapon from Final Fantasy VII? I mean, Lavos is kind of like Genova in a lot of ways, so maybe FF7 is a parallel dimension to Chrono Cross. Yeah, you know what? I am not going down that road. Dimensional crossover theories can wait for another day. Kid apparently knows way more than she ever let on, and states that this new thing that rose from the waters is called Terra Tower. She informs everyone that in 2400, during a counter-time experiment, control over the frozen flame is lost, which results in the time crash, which is when dimensions ripped apart, and Chronopolis hurtled back in time by 10,000 years. Maybe Lavos waking up did this, maybe not, but whatever the cause, it wasn't just Chronopolis that got thrown back. Dinopolis did too. Dinopolis, which I guess means terrible city if you pay attention to the Greek etymology, is a city from another timeline's future, one in which the Reptites didn't get destroyed by Lavos and instead just kept on living and ruling the planet. While popular myth holds that the dragon god sealed away the frozen flame, the truth is that Fate itself used the power of the frozen flame to scatter the dragons and put them all to sleep, keeping them torpid so that they couldn't rise against Fate or its machinations. It makes sense now why they gave their power to Surge, and also that they'll come to Chronopolis to seek their revenge. Outside, the dragons begin their attack, merging into one terrifying beast that looks like Sin from Final Fantasy X. Which also has connections to Final Fantasy VII. No, not going there. Stop giving me ammunition, game, because no. Anyway, Harl knocks Kid out before anything worse can happen. Later, as Serge explains the story to his other companions, some of them take it better than others, that they were all manipulated by a supercomputer that existed in the future, but also the past, but wouldn't have if it hadn't existed in the future. Yeah, that thing. Viper says that regardless, Serge needs to get into the Terra Tower because all of this is about Serge whether he likes it or not. Kid is still unconscious, and it doesn't look like she'll awaken anytime soon. Her spirit is possessed by the past, apparently, and only a powerful artifact will dispel the turmoil. Didn't Stina mention that the Chrono Cross was a powerful artifact? At Divine Dragon Falls, which is very close to Arnie Village, Serge enters a cave which contains an altar at the very back. Serge places the Tears of Love and Hate on the stands there, which rise and glow, twisting and spinning until they will become one piece, the legendary Chrono Cross. Returning to Hermit's hideaway, where Radius watches over a comatose Kid, Serge attempts to use the Chrono Cross, only to find himself sent back in time by its power. He finds himself in a burning building where children are hiding from the flames. They seem surprised that a stranger would save them, which is all kinds of sad when you think about it. Serge finds Kid, a much younger Kid, inside one of the burning rooms. Standing at the window are, of all people, Lynx and Harl, watching over the chaos. They teleport away once Serge enters. Serge grabs Kid and hauls her to safety as the rest of the building goes up in flames. From a distance, the two watch the flames with nothing more that can be done. Kid mourns the destruction of her home, the deaths of her friends, her mentor Luca, begging Serge not to leave her the way everyone else has left her. Serge promises not to leave her, but soon fades as the power of the Chrono Cross reaches its limit and pulls him back to the present, leaving a distraught Kid alone on the hillside. Back in the present, Kid awakens, freed from the trap of her memories. In more ways than one, since she doesn't remember Lynx stabbing her, and admits that yeah, sometimes she just loses her memories when she ends up in a dangerous situation. She always wakes up safely, it's happened loads of times before, nothing to worry about. Now that Kid is awake, Serge can focus his efforts on entering Terra Tower, which is now flying above the ocean and so can't be accessed by boat. Serge needs something that flies. Fortunately, one of Serge's friends is an honest-to-God space alien named Starkey, and we're better to find an alien spaceship than in the the El Nido Triangle. It's at the bottom of the ocean, though, so it's not the easiest to get to, but when they do, they find the ship is in working condition. Starkey says the ship is only big enough to fly himself around, but if they put the ship's anti-gravity device on a regular boat, then that boat should be able to fly. A little retrofitting later, and now Serge has a flying boat. Time to head to Terra Tower. The tower is unsurprisingly a massive thing with a very otherworldly feel to it. Powerful enemies stand guard within, each connected to an element, and each putting up a fight against Serge's advance. Voices speak to Serge from within the walls of the tower, telling him that the whole place is an ancient reptite fortress raised by dragons to enact revenge against humanity. With Fate defeated, the dragons have declared humans, the ones who created Fate to begin with, and the ones who rose to prominence only due to contact with Lavos, to bear the weight of all the wrongdoing. It's fitting then that since humans only evolved with Lavos' power, that a symbol of the race Lavos destroyed should be the thing to bring about humanity's downfall. The tower begins to change, resembling sections of Viper Manor, complete with the old prophet still in the library. He greets the party warmly and tells them that he is Balthazar, the man who originally created the Chronopolis research labs. He comes from the ancient kingdom called Zeal, where he was once a sage. Things were great there until the queen decided she wanted to harness Lavos' power. Lavos didn't take too kindly to that, and so created a dimensional vortex that launched the sage, the prophet, whatever you want to call him, into the far future. He studied the science that future held, and contributed the knowledge he had of magic, which allowed him to research a whole lot about time. His research led to Chronopolis, and also the time crash. Oops. He invented a small time machine and used it to travel to the current age to check up on Fate's plans. He also reveals that the Terra Tower was originally Dinopolis, the reptite city that existed in another timeline's future that also got thrown back 10,000 years into this timeline's past at the same time Chronopolis did. This was done as a sort of cosmic counterbalance to Chronopolis, and unsurprisingly, both Chronopolis and Dinopolis went to war with each other. Chronopolis was victorious, and Dinopolis was sealed away under the ocean by Fate, similarly to how Fate sealed away the dragons and made them slumber. Fate wanted nothing to stand against it. The dragons? Oh yeah, those guys are totally deities, and originally the whole El Nido archipelago was the Sea of Eden where they all resided. Since Fate overthrew gods, it's become sort of a de facto god itself, and so the Sea of Eden shrank to only surround Fate's location. I guess reality really is shaped by the observer. Fate observed that the kingdom of the gods should be its domain, and so that came to pass. But here's the real kicker. Originally, the dragons were opposed to humanity, seeing them rise up where the reptites had fallen. Fate was humanity's protector, working to keep the dragon gods down and to keep humanity on the right course to ensure that things stayed as they were. Also originally, the dragon gods were one single being, a biological machine that controlled the powers of nature in the future of the timeline where the reptiles continued to thrive. Fate sealing them away was what split them into 6 separate entities. That they look like dragons is just incidental, like a costume they wear so that they can be physical. So now that Fate has been eliminated, the dragons have been reunited across different dimensions, merging them into one entity again. Also, there are really 7 dragons, not just 6. There's a hidden one that nobody else knew about. It escaped Fate's seal and worked to free the other dragons from their binding. On the night of the Great Storm, when the power went out in Chronopolis, when they lost control of the frozen flame, a child was created by the dragons during the brief moment of their reprieve. A child named Harl. The same Harl that teamed up with Lynx and then later teamed up with Surge. The same Lynx that was actually Fate in human form. My head hurts. From the corner, a young child pipes up and asks, "Hey, is that the Chrono Cross I see shining in your hot little hand? That thing can cross time and space, and harmonize people's thoughts and feelings, and transfer memories. Kinda like the save points everyone's been using this entire time. But if it's used like an element, this world's magic, then it can bring about healing by calling together all the vibrations of the other elements. So, cool, have fun with that." At the tower summit, a strange stone hangs suspended in midair. It glows when Surge approaches and slowly unfurls itself into a beautiful flame, the Frozen Flame. Surge gets closer and it reacts with a burst of pain and light. The merged dragon god arrives, talks shit about humans for a while, and questions whether there's even a point to living in a world where pain begets pain, where everyone suffers for the sins of everybody else. It declares it will cleanse the world of the plague of humanity, starting with the people right in front of it, occasionally teleporting the battle to new locales just for the fun of it. It's a grueling battle, everyone fighting for their own lives and the lives of others, but in the end, the dragon god is defeated. The dragon god fades and zooms off, saying that now it will truly awaken. Balthazar arrives and reminds everyone that the physical form of the dragon god is only temporary and not the god's true form, just something it uses to interact with the physical plane. The actual dragon god? It's dead. Well, sort of. It was merged with Lavos, somewhere out beyond the veil of dimensional darkness. He also reminds everyone that the frozen flame is part of the essence of Lavos, and that whoever connects with it, in a sense, also connects with Lavos, gaining immense powers. Okay, quick interlude here to make sure I fully understand what's going on. Lynx was really Fate, who wanted the frozen flame, Lavos' power, for itself. Harl was a hidden dragon god who was working against Fate and humanity while also tagging along with Lynx. Also, the Fate supercomputer has been around since the very distant past, but also came from the future and was blasted back in time, was responsible for splitting the dragon god into multiple dragons in the first place to seal them away, while also using the power of the frozen flame to conduct the very time experiments that caused it to get rocketed back into the past in the first place. This game is a god's damned Mobius strip of mindfuckery. Anyway, Balthazar continues with his explanations. The person who connects with Lavos will gain immense power, and in doing so will bind them with the new seed of destruction, the Devourer of Time. The Devourer of Time is a new creature that's born when something from this world fuses with Lavos, who's currently hanging out on the other side of the dimensional void. It won't happen until sometime in the very far future, but when it does, when the fusion is complete, it will awaken and start munching away on all of space-time, bringing everything back to an empty void. Surge is instructed to return to the place where time split, and to weave together the threads of time once more. Balthazar gives Surge a time egg, which lets him travel beyond space-time. The remains of the defeated dragon god start to wreck the tower, causing it to break apart. The party beats a hasty retreat, and the Terra Tower falls from the sky back into the ocean. Only it's not so much destroyed as transformed into something more powerful and intimidating. Lovely. For now, Surge returns to Opasa Beach, where the dimensional rift is that he keeps using to jump between timelines. Waiting in Surge's homeworld are a few familiar-looking figures. Lucas says that no matter when Surge figures this whole thing began, he's wrong. The true beginning to this story was when ancient Zeal was destroyed. The princess, Shala, was sucked into a dimensional vortex along with something called the Lavos Mammon machine. Shala and Lavos merged and will later become the Devourer of Time. The two halves of this entity were conflicted in their purpose, to destroy or to save. As she fell through the vortex, Shala heard Surge's voice crying out beyond time, somehow. The connection went beyond just Surge and Shala, but instead forged a connection between past and future, the two times intersecting. When Shala heard Surge cry out during the attack by the Panther Demon, she tried to make full contact with this dimension, which unfortunately caused the massive storm that blew Wazuki and Miguel off course, caused Fate to malfunction, and ultimately led to Surge coming into contact with the Frozen Flame. Before Shala's kinder aspects could be subsumed by Lavos' hatred, she cloned herself and sent that clone, as a baby, to this dimension, hoping to reach out to Surge that way, along with a magical pendant for protection. Every time the clone found herself in danger, the pendant would rewind time a little and send the clone to a safer point, keeping her from harm. Yeah, you all know where this is going. Not only is Harl a hidden dragon, but Kid is the clone of an ancient princess. Speaking of Kid, remember in Chronopolis seeing the room with Project Kid painted above the door? That was Balthazar's time control project. The entire point of it was to lead Surge to this particular place in time, manipulating him the whole way. Literally everything, from founding Chronopolis to the entire battle between Fate and the Dragon Gods, was all orchestrated so that Surge could gain the Chrono Cross and be on Opasa Beach right now. Kid, in the future, will travel back in time to save Surge from drowning as a child, just as Surge traveled back in time to save Kid from burning to death. Which couldn't happen unless Kid saves him from the ocean so he can grow up. What's that, you say? That doesn't make any sense because Kid is first encountered in the world where Surge did drown as a child? Nah, it's fine. Surge can hop dimensions, so it's all cool. Anyway, Surge occupies a very, very specific role in all of this, as someone who's come into contact with Shala, Shala's clone, and the Frozen Flame. Shala, as she was, is no more, subsumed into the Devourer of Time. Surge's role is to release her, if indeed there's anything left to release, and forge yet another new future for the planet, one that, yet again, won't involve freaky cosmic destruction. Balthazar foresaw the world would be destroyed by the Devourer of Time and took every step to ensure that would not happen. His hope is that Surge will use the Chrono Cross to harmonize all of the elements and soothe the rage and pain in the Devourer of Time's heart. The Chrono on the beach tells Surge that 10 years ago, when Fate tried to eliminate any obstacle that stood in the way of its plans, the Dragon Gods sent out Harl to try and get the flame back from Fate, tricking Lynx into joining forces so she could keep an eye on him. But Surge was meant to die that day. The timeline in which he survives? That's the aberration. That's what's not supposed to be. Balthazar's plan to have Kid go back in time to save Surge wasn't supposed to happen, at least not according to Fate's plans. Anyway, Chrono also informs Surge that not only was Lynx the Panther Demon that tried to kill him, not only was Lynx the physical interface between Fate and this reality, but Lynx is also Surge's dad, Wazuki. His mind eroded by worry for his son, he was integrated by Fate and served as Fate's embodiment from then on. Fate remolded Wazuki into Surge's worst fear at the time, a panther. So Lynx may have been the Panther Demon that attacked Surge, and also may have been Fate's incarnation, and also Surge's father, but he wasn't all three at the same time. In fact, he was really only modeled on the Panther Demon, so it's not exactly right to say that Lynx ever was that. Now that Surge's reality has finished crashing down around his ears, it's time to take that one last step. It's time to defeat the Devourer of Time, once and for all, and to free Princess Shala from its clutches. Surge activates the Time Egg at the dimensional warp point, taking them into the darkness beyond time and space. The Void is impressive and terrifying, as is the Devourer of Time, which holds Shala in a capsule on its back. After the defeat of the Devourer of Time, the capsule cracks, fractures, radiance shining forth from it as Shala's prison breaks apart utterly. The Devourer of Time fades away into light, vanishing into the darkness of the void, leaving Shala behind. She awakens and speaks. I've been waiting an eternity just for this moment, meaninglessly hurting one another, the disappearing life forms. The worlds that become deleted, the thoughts that become buried, the pools of cells that slowly evaporate, the echoes of consciousness that slowly fade. Love to hate, hate to love. Why are we born? Why do we die? Evolution? The survival of the fittest? What is there to be achieved from harming one another, killing one another? The eggs that we call planets, and the innumerable spermatozoa which gather around those that we call life forms. When one of those countless seeds inseminates a planet, a new universe is born. But until that occurs, hundreds of millions of years will pass, and innumerable life forms will be born, then die. That is the be-all and end-all. Everything exists for that one moment, also that the universe can evolve into the next dimension. Does that make us all just pawns? Are each of our short lives nothing but a cheap sacrifice so the one chosen life form can be born? No, that is not the case. Each and every one of us has a chance of becoming that one chosen life form which inseminates a planet. Yes, it could be you. Genes and environment. Each of us tries to do his best under the limited conditions that we are dealt. Each life form that attempts to eke out a decent life for itself forms a link in the golden chain that leads to the creation of a new universe. If one link is missing, there will be no future. There is no such thing as a useless life form, no such thing as a pawn. Every single thing in the whole of nature is perhaps just dreaming a dream of life. All of them are also perhaps nothing more than a dream dreamt by the planet before it's born. Oh, but yes, and eventually all dreams will return to Zervan, the Sea of Dreams. Time, which has been divided, will be unified again now. The time for farewells has come. You will lose all memory of this whole adventure and return to your own time. But this time, you will be able to live your own life. We alone do not have the power to heal the world's woes, or to solve all its mysteries. And yet, even then, it was bloody good knowing you, mate. Thanks for being born you, Surge. I guess now's the time to say, see you later, mate. But I'll find you. Sometime, somewhere. I'm bloody sure of it. No matter the time period, no matter the world you live in, I'll find you. I'm sure I will find you. Without Fate's influence via the records of Fate, the save points that rewrote memories and influenced minds, people are now free to live their own lives and make their own decisions, to shoulder the burden of consequences for themselves. The timelines will separate again, no more connection, and life may not return to what it was before all of this happened, but it will return to some level of normalcy. Just a new normal. Surge is lying face down on the beach, being shaken awake by Lena. He just passed out all of a sudden, no warning, and gave her quite a scare. He mentions Terra Tower and Fate, and Lena has no idea what he's talking about. They just arrived on the beach together after Surge got her some Komodo dragon scales for her necklace. And there you have it, Chrono Cross in a very confusing nutshell. I want to state that there's a whole lot that I didn't get to cover in this recap. As I said at the very beginning in the first video, I stuck to the main story only, didn't really go into the side stories and individual character arcs and all of that, which adds so much more depth to this already very multi-layered tale. It's the sort of game that probably means even more the second time around when you can approach all the events in the beginning with the knowledge of what happens at the end. It's absolutely worth playing, and while some aspects of the story are undoubtedly richer and more meaningful if you play Chrono Trigger first, I don't think it's necessary to do so to enjoy Chrono Cross. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. If you like it, it'd be awesome if you clicked the like button or subscribed if you want to see more of what I'll be doing in the future. This was a wild ride, that's for damn sure. As always, folks, take care and happy gaming.